Sean Gregory is Director of Creative Learning for the Guildhall School of Music, Music and Drama and the Barbican Centre, and he's got a fabulous bio. Have a look in your pants. Sean.
Thank you very much. So just a brief sort of slightly more personal perspective, both of action learning and some of the other things that have been talked about. One thing I was just asked to comment on was just the leadership journey for myself, without going through a whole bio. My leadership journey has started very much as an artist and practitioner, and as I know, as it has for many of the people in this room, be it literally working practically as an artist or a producer, a project manager or a teacher, all of those things valid. So I think how one connects to leadership and facilitating change, often not by yourself, but in groups with others, working in teams, your first experience as you come through is the one that you carry most with you. I am not an experienced leader in the sort of more traditional sense of the word, in the corporate sense or the management training sense, but I feel, and I feel hopefully many of us in the room feel this, that you can apply leadership skills through what one has done as an artist, as a practitioner, as a teacher. It's about being in a room with a group of people, feeling you can approach things on an equal basis, facilitate things, let go, intervene at the right moment, make suggestions, answer, listen, all of those sorts of things. And for me, that is the fundamental quality one should feel able to carry as one moves on with all sorts of things, whether it's working in an organisation, working in partnership, trying to facilitate change, such important change that's been talked about now, and how one carries that journey. And I think the key thing is, it's at the risk of stating the obvious, it's bigger than you are yourself as an individual. It's recognising it's something you cannot do on your own, but you can be part of and contribute to. Change is about looking ahead, obviously, beyond our time as well. It's what could this look like in 50 years' time, let alone 5, 10 or 20 years' time. And it's ensuring now that we really start to engender those sorts of things. My experience within the Barbican Guildhall, as has already been said, it's a complex world. It's a complex world. We live in, organisations are complex, workshops are complex, projects are complex, classrooms full of children and young people are complex, the arts is complex, everything is complex. And that's the joy of it. And I think the first thing is to feel that it's something you can embrace and feel positive about and optimistic about in terms of what can be achieved. And I'm going to keep coming back to when you've got a group of people in a room together, small group, large group, whatever. And it's feeling that you can do something with that individually and with other people. The other thing I wanted to throw in just regarding the Barbican Guildhall thing, I think a big, wonderful learning experience for me, a tough one as well, is obviously music education is my background and I remain very close to it. Music education to me has always meant music in the broadest sense. I trained classically, I studied as a composer, creative workshop leading, creative project leadership has always been a big part of my work. But for me, music's styles, genres and everything sit side by side. They sit in people. Your way into music comes through you, and the way into engaging with music, that's part of the skill and the joy of being part of a leadership facilitatory experience, is finding a person or a group's best way into music. The rest can and should then follow if you have the right infrastructure, the right will, the right partnerships, and the right belief, and of course resources in place. And that is the premise upon which I'm trying to build things up. It has always been as a workshop leader, but certainly what we're trying to do through the Barbican Guildhall partnership as well. And another key thing is obviously we're thinking more and more across art forms. That's a huge challenge, because as soon as one starts to diversify, one worries about losing the essence and even the specialism and the high quality that goes with that. But of course, through conversation, through groups of people being together in a room, whether they're producers, programmers, leaders, teachers, you start to discover that actually the premise upon which you're building your work is often the same. The other key part of higher education and arts centres such as the Barbican working together is our partnership with the wider community. For us, it's particularly facing east, It's something that the Barbican and Guildhall, like many organisations, have been doing for many years, decades even. It's not something that's just happened over the last few months or years. And it's something that we're always striving to sustain and build. So at the heart of it is sustaining and building relationships in a way that goes beyond just a project with a finite period of time and then it's gone. And without going into all of the detail now, one of the key things we're looking at developing over the next few years is an East London cultural partnership, working closely with the East London hubs, schools, local organisations, and us not leading it solely, but setting up an environment where we can collaborate and work together effectively. I think, forgive me if I'm stating the obvious, but one of the key things is that you never stop asking questions, which is something that just came up through action learning. You never stop being curious, you never stop listening, and you never stop being afraid to learn. And you're never afraid to engender that sense of learning amongst other people. And you're never afraid of the unknown, which is one of the key challenging things that we're all facing, and my goodness, young people themselves face. The landscape is changing, the ecology of what we have across London and beyond is changing. We know that, but that creates a lot of uncertainty. And it's getting that very delicate balance between holding on, of course, to the foundation that we've built up over the last few years, decades, centuries even, and allowing things to evolve and change and develop. And I think this allowing space and time for people to reflect and ask questions is so important. I don't allow myself enough time for that, without a doubt. It's so easy to be caught up in that deadline, that project, all those things we have to do because that's what's asked of us through our organisation, through the funding criteria. We need to ensure that we embed time to think and allow conversation to happen, to capture it, to reflect on it, to present it, and to build on it. The next thing you do is informed by what you have caught through that particular period. And I think that's just us as a society allowing ourselves, giving ourselves permission to do that, not in some sort of ethereal way where we can't translate it into action. It's action and reflection, always combined. I've nearly finished, but I'm just going to come on to action learning itself, which has been a more recent experience for me, part of which was having 3 fantastic days with Ruth in her centre down in South East London. But my way in came even before that. I have been involved with an initiative called Artworks, which Paul Hamlin Foundation set up about 4 years ago now. It's an initiative looking at the professional development and training of artists who work in participatory settings. The project is striving to raise the profile and the status of the work that artists do, the professional development opportunities they have across all the art forms when working in community participatory, socially engaged settings, so that hopefully it has a positive impact on both the training and development that goes on, for example, in conservatoires and higher education, but also continuing professional development generally, be it for emerging or established artists and teachers. And of course that it is as inclusive as possible. It's for everyone. We have 5 pathfinders, what are called pathfinders, UK-wide, that Hamlin commissioned. 1 in London, 1 in the northeast of England, 1 in Scotland, 1 in Wales, and 1 which is UK-wide called Navigator, which covers all the arts community membership bodies. It's hugely complex, multi-layered, again. It's partnership-based, it's people-based. And it's been a bit of a head fry at times, trying to sort out all the ins and outs of it, both from the London end, which we are leading as Barbican Guildhall, and nationally. One thing Suzanne Birds did very early on in Artworks, it was nearly 3 years ago, was when we met, and we meet 4 times a year as Pathfinders for 2 days each time, and that is an information sharing, decision making forum, making sure that each Pathfinder is on track, because there are different types of partnerships, and also that nationally we're keeping a sense of where do we want this thing to go, this highly complex, sophisticated thing. So in a nutshell, Suzanne suggested that the 5 project leads, and I'm one of them, from each of those Pathfinders, those regions, met at the beginning of the 2nd day, each time we were together, 4 times a year, and we ran as an action learning set. And that has been extremely valuable for us. It's one of those classic things where you begin it and you think, what is the point of this? We've got time on our hands here to get other things sorted. But without going through it all again now, it is a very simple and clear and safe process to undertake, which just takes your head into a different place. And one of the many things I really enjoy about it is that it's not so set that it becomes this strict methodology where if you don't stick to it like this, it's not going to work. Or, yes, there's all that stuff over there, but we do it like this. There's all sorts of scope to make connections. It's a forum where each of you can be heard, even if it's just catching up. How have the last 3 months been, which is ours? Personally, in relation to artworks, in relation to your own organisation. Is there anything that anyone would particularly like to talk about that they're finding challenging or whatever? 2 or 3 things may come up. As a group, facilitated by the action set facilitator, you decide which one you're going to talk about. And then you do nothing for the next hour or so in our case, but focus on that particular person and the particular thing they want to talk about. And the key is the questioning. You start with specific questions. They're called clarifying questions. You just are, if you've got a question to ask, you're asking to get greater clarity on that particular issue. You're not allowed to veer from that. And then they are open questions. That's the only bit that perhaps is a little more set, but it's a very, very powerful way of getting everyone to focus on the same thing and to think about what you're asking and to really absorb what you're hearing, not just as an individual, but as a group. And action comes out of that, without a doubt. So I'm going to stop there. I'm cutting short a little bit, but really just in terms of what the Advanced Network is about and what it is setting out to achieve, I think it's fantastic. I think it's something that we are very, very keen to be part of as the Barbican Guildhall. We've talked for a long time about a golden thread of learning, from that sort of under 18 to undergraduate to postgraduate into lifelong learning as a professional. We are now talking about that across art forms, and we are developing new courses and programs that are as inclusive as possible. The look and feel of our institutions at the Guildhall and the Barbican has got to change. If anything, and I'm going to say it now, I'd say worse than it was 20 years ago. A few months ago, the LSSO, the London School Symphony Orchestra, and CYM had, I think it was a 50-year anniversary celebration, 40 or 50 year, and there was this fantastic energy in the room, in the music hall in Guildhall, when everyone came together just before an LSSO concert. You couldn't help but notice that actually the demographic sort of went with the age, and I would suggest that the demographic from those who'd been through it in the 70s and 80s, even into the early 90s, was more representative of London as we know it than it is now. And that image has sort of stayed with me, and it's certainly something I want to see change within our own organisations. It's unacceptable. And, you know, I feel as part of that, I've been around this work for 25, 30 years. What have I actually done to really make sure this is changing? There are lots of reasons for it. I'm not coming down on myself or us. It's something just to acknowledge, which is what this is about, and to find the best way to get the conversation going and to make sure that conversation leads to action. And I would suggest that action learning could really help part of that process. Thank you.